Why does everything change after $20,000? Discover now how the wealthy transform their finances. Everyone talks about making more money, but almost no one talks about the exact point where the game changes. It's not when you make six figures, not even when you pay off all debts. It's when you reach your first $20,000 net. It seems little compared to the millions that appear on Instagram, but here's the truth that no one mentions. The first 20,000 are the turning point between living paycheck to paycheck and finally starting to build real wealth. Before that milestone, their brain is in survival mode. Every dollar that comes in is already committed. Any unexpected expense turns into a disaster. You can't think about investments because you're too busy trying to make it to the next month. But when you cross the 20,000 mark, everything changes. You gain something more valuable than money. Margin. Margin to make mistakes, margin to breathe, margin to invest without panic. And this mental space frees up your energy to grow. That's why people who manage to accumulate $20,000 in a disciplined way tend to accelerate soon after. Compound interest starts working in your favor. Decisions are no longer about how to get out of the red, but about how to multiply what I have. It's like getting out of a stuck car and finally hitting the open road. The feeling of control replaces the constant fear of running out. In this video, we will debunk the myth that you can only invest after getting rich and show why the first 20,000 change how you think, feel, and decide about money. More importantly, I will show you how wealthy people use this milestone as a springboard to build a solid asset base and real financial freedom. Get ready because this turning point is not about luck. It's about strategy, mindset, and simple choices that anyone can apply. The psychology of the first 20,000 when they are starting out. Money seems like a scarce and fragile resource. Every expense weighs heavily. Every financial mistake seems final. And every emergency turns into a crisis. This constant pressure puts their brain in a scarcity state. Behavioral economics studies show that financial scarcity reduces decision-making ability, as if part of their mental energy is hijacked by the fear of running out. That is why so many people with potential get stuck in the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, even though they are intelligent and hardworking. Reaching 20,000 changes this mental state radically. It is not just about the amount itself. It is what it represents. Having this financial cushion makes their brain shift from emergency mode to strategy mode. They start to look into the future clearly. Instead of thinking, what do I need to pay now? They begin to think, where can this money work for me? And this change in mentality is exactly what rich people master. They do not live reactively. They act strategically. This point is invisible to those who are still chasing after the next bill. That is why so many people believe that investing is only possible after earning a lot. But the rich know that the first leap comes from accumulation, not from earnings. When they have 20,000 saved, every new dollar stops being a survival buoy and starts being a brick in the construction of their wealth. This perception changes the emotional relationship with money. They stop seeing money as a problem and start seeing it as a tool. And when money becomes a tool, they stop working just for money and start making money work for them. The power of financial margin. Most people underestimate what 20,000 represent because they are used to thinking about money only as expenses and not as leverage. But that amount creates something that completely changes their trajectory. Margin. Margin is the space between what they need and what they have. Without margin, everything becomes urgent. With margin, they gain power of choice. With 20,000 saved, they stop being a hostage to the next paycheck. If their boss delays payment, they don't panic. If a medical emergency arises, they handle it without resorting to their credit card. And most importantly, they gain the freedom to say no. No to jobs that don't respect their time. No to clients who don't value their work. No to impulsive purchases that drain their future. This ability to say no is a dividing line between those who are always chasing money and those for whom money chases after them. Furthermore, this reserve creates what investors call a runway. The takeoff strip. With a secure runway, they can take calculated risks. Start a side project, take a course that will increase their income, or invest with a long-term vision. The wealthy understand that margin is not a luxury, it's a strategy. They build margin first and use this foundation to seek higher returns later. Without this safety net, even incredible opportunities seem like threats. With it, every opportunity becomes a step. And each step well taken shortens the years on the path. When they have margin, they stop living out of necessity and start living with intention. The snowball effect starts here. 20,000 is not just a pretty number in the account. They are the point where compound interest starts playing on their side. Before that, any gain seems too small to matter. A 5% return on $1,000 is only 50. Seems irrelevant. But on 20,000, it's $1,000 a year, without them lifting a finger. That changes the psychological game. They finally see money growing effortlessly, and that visual proof of progress fuels their discipline like nothing else can. That's why so many people never get ahead. They don't accumulate enough to see the snowball gaining weight. Experienced investors know that wealth growth is not linear, it's exponential. The first 20,000 is slow. Then each dollar that comes in speeds up the curve. The math changes. And their mindset changes along. They stop thinking, it's not worth investing a little, and start thinking, every dollar invested is pushing the ball downhill. Another powerful point is that with this amount, they can truly diversify. They can have a solid emergency fund and still put some in long-term investments, such as ETFs or high-yield accounts. This reduces risks and increases the sense of control. The wealthy do exactly that. They create multiple streams that feed each other, using the profits from one to strengthen the other. When they reach 20,000, money stops being static and starts moving on its own. And when money starts moving on its own, they stop feeling like they are always starting from scratch. Discipline gets easier, yes, really. Until they reach the first 20,000, maintaining financial discipline seems like a constant battle. Every saving requires effort, every choice demands willpower, and any slip-up seems to throw all progress away. But once this milestone is reached, discipline stops being a struggle and starts to become an automatic habit. And this doesn't happen by magic, it happens because their brain changes the way they see money. With a solid reserve, the fear that once consumed their mental energy vanishes. They are no longer spending energy trying to put out fires, so they can channel that focus into growing. Saving more becomes easier because now there is a visible reward. The feeling of constant progress makes each frugal choice sound like a victory, not like deprivation. And this is exactly the mindset that wealthy people cultivate from an early age, treating each dollar saved as a brick in their wealth, not as something they are losing by not spending. Another point is that with 20,000 saved, their habits start to automatically align with their goals. They begin to think twice before making impulsive purchases because they know they delay their growth curve. They start to plan the entire month, not just the next week. And each coherent decision reinforces their identity as someone who controls money, not someone controlled by it. This new identity is powerful because it creates a cycle. Discipline generates growth, growth generates motivation, and motivation reinforces discipline. With the first 20,000, they stop fighting against their old habits and start building habits that work in their favor. Financial confidence skyrockets. There is a detail that almost no one talks about. Trust doesn't come before money, it comes along with the first concrete signs of progress. Until they reach 20,000, they still feel vulnerable. Even when they are saving, it seems like any unexpected event could destroy everything. But when this amount is consolidated, trust appears almost instantaneously. And it completely changes their relationship with money. With 20,000 saved, they realize they are capable of creating stability with their own hands. This feeling of control is a turning point. They stop thinking, I hope everything goes well, and start thinking, I can handle anything. This kind of self-confidence is what sets apart those who remain insecure even when earning well from those who build consistent wealth. Rich people don't trust in luck, they trust in their own ability to rise again. And this trust is born exactly at that point. The security of having a financial cushion eliminates the paralyzing fear. They start negotiating firmly, seeking better salaries, saying yes to bold projects, and refusing what is not worth their time. Their decisions no longer come from necessity but from vision. And this is crucial because fear-based decisions usually come with a high cost, while confidence-based decisions tend to generate a return. When trust enters, anxiety leaves. And with a mind free from fear, they finally manage to build wealth intentionally, without sabotaging themselves at every step. You gain leverage power before reaching 20,000. Their position in negotiations is weak because they depend too much on the money they are trying to protect. This puts them at a disadvantage in any conversation. With bosses, with banks, with clients, and even with themselves. But when they accumulate this amount, the dynamics change. They start to have what the rich call optionality. The power to choose based on what is best, not what is urgent. With this reserve, they can reject low-paying jobs without fear of being left without income. They can negotiate salaries and fees firmly because they are not desperate for a yes. They can wait for better opportunities instead of accepting anything to survive. And, perhaps most importantly, they can invest with a long-term vision without panicking if the market fluctuates. From here they begin to play the same game that the rich play. The leverage game. They use capital not only to make more money, but to buy time, freedom, and quality of life. When they are not trapped in the scarcity cycle, they can wait for the right moment instead of chasing after the first opportunity that comes along. And this extra time is often what makes the right decisions seem like lucky decisions to those on the outside. With the first 20,000, they stop begging for opportunities and start choosing them strategically. The beginning of real freedom. When we talk about financial freedom, most people imagine gigantic figures, mansions, and early retirement. But true freedom begins long before that. And the first 20,000 is the point where it becomes tangible. This amount creates something rare. The feeling that they are no longer trapped. They can say no to what doesn't make sense and yes to what once seemed impossible. With this cushion, they can leave a toxic job without collapsing. They can take a few days off to reorganize their mind without fear of falling behind on bills. They can invest in a course that expands their skills even if it doesn't bring immediate returns. This is freedom in its purest form. The ability to decide what to do with their time and energy without money dictating every step. The wealthy understand that freedom is not about buying everything, it's about being able to choose calmly. And that power doesn't come out of nowhere. It emerges when they build a solid enough foundation to stop living paycheck to paycheck. That's why many who reach the first 20,000 feel like they have taken an invisible weight off their shoulders. The pressure disappears. Life slows down. They start planning clearly instead of just reacting. With this level of security, every decision stops being driven by fear and starts being guided by purpose. And when their choices come from purpose, their money starts working for their life, not the other way around. You create a system that works on its own until 20,000. Dealing with money feels like a constant manual effort. You need to remember each account, each transfer, each deadline. It's like pushing a rock uphill. If you stop for a second, everything crumbles. But when that milestone is reached, something changes. You can build a financial system that works on autopilot, freeing your mind to grow. With a solid foundation, you can separate accounts with specific functions. One just for fixed expenses, another for savings, another for investments. You can automate deposits and schedules, ensuring that your financial priorities are met before you have a chance to spend impulsively. And this simple act of automating is one of the wealthiest's most powerful secrets. They take discipline out of the equation. They don't rely on willpower, they rely on processes. Furthermore, this system turns one's budget from a weight into a compass. They stop asking, "How much can I spend?" and start asking, "How much do I want to save?" And this change of question changes their entire behavior. Money stops being something that slips away and starts being something that obeys. They start to clearly predict their next steps, correct deviations before they become problems, and make decisions based on data, not anxiety. When their system works on its own, they finally free themselves from the work of controlling every penny, and can focus their energy on earning more, not just surviving. Money starts growing without you before reaching 20,000. Every penny seems to require active effort. They work, earn, spend, and start over like running on an endless treadmill. But when that amount is reached, the dynamic changes. Money starts generating money. This is where the concept of passive income ceases to be theory and begins to become practical reality. With this amount, they can invest part in assets that produce constant returns, such as index funds, high-yield accounts, or even small investments in digital businesses. Even if the initial gains are modest, the difference is psychological and profound. For the first time, their wealth grows without them exchanging hours of life for it. This tangible proof of passive growth completely changes their mindset. They stop thinking only about how to earn and start thinking about how to multiply. Another important point: with a base of 20,000, risks become manageable. Before that, any market fluctuation seems like a threat. But now they can wait for the long term, because they know their cushion covers emergencies. And the wealthy play exactly this game. They let investments grow patiently while living off what is already guaranteed. When money works for you, time becomes your greatest ally. Each day that goes by increases their wealth, even if they do nothing. And this feeling of automatic progress is the fuel that keeps them on the path to long-term wealth. They enter the rich people's game. The turning point of 20,000 is not only financial, it's mental. Until now, money was something they pursued. From now on, money becomes something they manage. And it is exactly this point that separates those who continue chasing every paycheck from those who start building lasting freedom. The rich think in terms of systems, not salaries. They use every dollar as a strategic piece on a larger board. And the first 20,000 is the moment when they finally get to play on this board too. With this foundation, they start doing what the rich have always done: protect, multiply, and direct money to generate more time and more options. They set clear long-term goals, establish priorities logically, and make financial decisions calmly, not out of fear. This calm changes everything. It prevents hasty decisions, reduces costly mistakes, and increases the return on every move. The most interesting part is that, at this point, growth no longer depends on how much you earn but on how much you keep and make it grow. The rich don't get rich because they always earn more than others. They get rich because they preserve and multiply better. When their first 20,000 is secured, they start operating with the same mindset of preservation and growth, and this completely changes their financial future. This is the moment when money ceases to be an end and becomes a means to build a life with choices, time, and security, the true markers of wealth. The invisible line that changes everything. The first 20,000 are not just a number in the account. They are the invisible line that separates survival from wealth building. Until that point, money is urgency, anxiety, and scarcity. After it, money turns into strategy, freedom, and growth. That's why so many smart people remain stuck, while others seemingly lucky take off. It's not luck, it's structure. When they cross that line, something changes irreversibly. Their habits align, their discipline strengthens, and their confidence soars. They start negotiating firmly, planning with a long-term vision, and using every dollar as a tool to gain time, not just things. The constant pressure disappears. They can breathe, think, choose. And that mental space is exactly what the wealthy protect at all costs, because it's where the right decisions are born. No matter how much you earn today, what matters is how much you can keep, protect, and consistently multiply. The first 20,000 are not the end of the road. They are the beginning of the true money game. And those who learn to play well at this stage build a foundation that supports everything that comes next. Passive income, investments, security, and mainly financial peace. This is the silent turning point that transforms those who manage pennies into those who command fortunes. Money made easy helps you save with lightness, peace of mind, and time for life.